Future of financial messaging, driving growth with an autonomous life cycle. I'd like to welcome Justin Orgel. He's the Senior Director, Architect at Marigold USA.
All right, thanks. You guys can hear me okay? All right, we're going to talk about the future and now of FinServe lifecycle marketing. And I had to put the now because there are some people doing things now, which is really cool. Mostly people are talking about the future. But just to know who we're talking about here, who's in the audience, how many people, just show of hands, are overseeing or involved in their marketing lifecycle communications? Okay, great. So I have a slide for each person in the room, literally. So this should be good. So I want to start with my favorite quote, which I hear from lots of different people every day, and I'm sure you guys do as well, which is the do more with less, the classic executive quote. And the cool thing is we actually have tools now to do more with less. And so I'm going to talk a little bit for a few minutes about the assistant of AI and the movement and the evolution from our kind of automation state in marketing automation and how now AI is becoming moving into the world of autonomy. I don't like to say autonomous too frequently because I think that implies that we're just literally letting everything go and we're not as involved. So I like to use semi-autonomous because I like to have job security. So that's kind of what I'll talk about. The key things that semi-autonomous, when I think about it, is there's kind of two key foundational pillars there. One is just guardrails, right? Like as FinServe marketers and at Marigold, we work with a lot of big FinServe brands and work supporting their strategy and their execution for lifecycle messages, including the deployment of AI campaigns, powered campaigns. The guardrails thing is probably the most important piece of it. The other is just realizing our role in this new world for those that are actually using some of the AI-enabled semi-autonomous tools, and our role as a conductor or as an orchestrator. I've seen a couple other presentations today that kind of echo something similar. So there was an RTD2 one I saw earlier that I liked. So I think that it's clear, we're partnering well here, but we have to act as an orchestrator. Sometimes it does feel like we're in 1913. I still see a lot of brands that have these like massive teams that are kind of doing everything very manually, using spreadsheets and all that stuff to set up marketing campaigns. Then things just kind of showing the evolution here, we move to this kind of what I think of as like an automation plateau. That's actually a picture of me in New Mexico pausing an email campaign in 2013. It's a joke, obviously. But anyway, the point is that automation is, it should be something everyone at this point is doing. But we're now in an exciting era where we can take this leap and start to use some of the AI in a really creative and powerful way. So I like to level set it like, what is our actual job? Thinking about balancing the integration of personalization, trust, and compliance, and how do we do that at scale? So the cool thing is some of the functionality and some of the technology now that we can leverage is allowing us to get to the end goal of personalization, but doing it a lot easier than maybe we've done in the past with all these kind of disparate data systems. I'm going to showcase some examples of that in a minute. But the new world that we're living in, there's obviously a lot around expectation changes. There's a lot of challenger banks, including a lot of people who are at this conference. And then also just people's generational attitude towards different brands and financial brands. And there is a clear, especially amongst certain cohorts, a clear response that there is a very transactional nature to a banking relationship, but there is an openness to, especially a younger cohort, to give more to get more in terms of personalization. So just to create some interactivity here, wanted to just get a sense for the potential challenges that you all face in the room when you're creating your digital communication. So I'll go with this FinServ feud theme here, legal and compliance disclosure. So just show of hands of what is your kind of like biggest pain point when you're setting up campaigns and creating communications? Is that I saw kind of a half wave there. Amazing. What about the segmentation piece? Not as much. How about personalization? What about the data to support all that stuff? Okay, so the data and the compliance, not shocking given our vertical here. So we have challenges. And I think what's cool is that we're starting to see FinServ brands really embrace different tools. And I know, for example, like Citibank, which is one of our clients, I don't know if anyone's in the room from Citi, but they have a really ambitious utilization of AI tools for their workforce, and it's really cool. You can go online and read all about it, but they're doing a great job of just getting stuff out there and empowering their employee base to use these machines to make themselves more productive. So the way that we look at it in terms of just kind of the pillars of how we build our product is around, how we use the acceleration of AI for strategic advisory, right? So someone just sent me a chart of like all the big consulting firms and how on all the new kind of AI platforms that are being used to kind of really disrupt those platforms. So in the context of the lifecycle marketing and messaging and communications and the CDP world, we use this functionality for strategic advisory, for productivity amplification. I'm going to talk about some examples there in a minute. How to get the end customer obviously more engaged, and then how to have controls around these things, which is obviously critical in this vertical. So what are the use cases? So these are 6 use cases that we're working with clients a lot on right now. And so if you think about what's the opportunity for both from a marketing side for efficiency, and then also from a engagement side for your end customer, signals and moments. We talk a lot about what are the different signals that customers are giving us, and how can we make predictive next best actions on those signals, right? So that's one example that's fairly common in our world. Content decisioning, there is an obsession around, how do you create the right type of design and messaging and layout. That is a huge piece of the evolution of messaging, and it's certainly a big focus of ours and what we're doing in our platform. Send time optimization is kind of the classic one. It's kind of, I call it even like old school usage at this point, but when's the best time to send email? That's a very time-old question that now you can use data to try and influence more. Frequency management. This is one I love. It's a great tool for marketers, being able to understand what the tolerance is for frequency across both marketing comms and transactional comms. Orchestration, so the shifting of channels, so whether that's push or SMS or in-app email, et cetera, DM, what is the hierarchy and how is that powered? And then the dynamic offers. So we also do a lot of loyalty programs and offer optimization. So how do you give actual personalized and dynamic offers so that you're not giving away margin for certain offers? And I'm going to give a couple examples of that in a few minutes. Is there anyone in this room that's doing anything or is super interested or has anything they want to share around any of these use cases or other use cases that are cool that they're doing? That was rhetorical, by the way. So this is kind of a visual look at what I just shared in terms of like, if we're thinking about building campaigns and audiences and all that stuff, like what does that actually look like from a engagement and operational efficiency, and how do we layer in some of the AI functionality that, through the workflow process. And if you look, obviously, in the vendor hall, there's like so many different vendors that do a lot of little things that are kind of the sum of the parts, so to speak. So Marigold, we do a lot of stuff. We also, have connectors and open infrastructure to work with some of the partners in the other room. But if you think of everything from building the audiences, the content, the timing, then going through the compliance piece, the design and code of the campaigns themselves, there's so many, when you break out the pieces of the Ford assembly line, so to speak, it's pretty cool to see how how much can be both automated, but then how much can also be just created based off of the data that you provide in there, especially around optimization. And that's actually the most exciting part for me as being in the strategy world is actually using all these natural language queries to help understand how to optimize campaigns. So this I thought was an interesting little chart, ChatGPT style, on just really foundational, what are email marketers interested in, and what is that growing interest, and how AI is involved in supporting email marketing function. And so automation, not surprisingly, and personalization are kind of the two big ones. And again, you can see, there's been growth here in terms of interest. Send time optimization, testing, predictive analytics. So, the function of just kind of most basic platforms now have the support to do all these things, but they're still being kind of managed at the human level. And even, this is an example from Disney, which is a client, and I think this is a cool example because it's not necessarily the fully autonomous point that we're at, but it is showcasing kind of how content can be personalized and delivered at scale without much manual intervention. And so what's cool about Disney, obviously they have an amazing brand. How do you take that brand and convey that into a digital touch point, such as an email, for example? This is a kind of exaggerated version of one, but just for illustration purposes, but all the elements, this is all powered by our Live Clicker tool. All the elements are dynamic based off of certain criteria. So for example, you have a live coupon, you have a forecast based on where you open the email, there's live video content, there's also live feeds and scrapes. So again, in terms of creating and developing campaigns, you're not kind of setting up and doing as much of the kind of traditional manual logic. So there's some cool elements there. Another example, again, just kind of adapting messaging at scale without manual intervention. These are some things that we work on that I thought would be kind of cool to showcase. Again, kind of pulling things from different places and allowing less manual work, right? So this is kind of where we're at now for the most part, but where we have some clients and where we're kind of going more future, and we're launching something called Marigold Home in January. This is kind of the future that I see in terms of you log in, you have your performance results and your dashboard as a marketer, and then you have your next best action as a marketer. So, and you also have suggestions and recommendations based on how you can improve campaigns specifically. So it's doing a lot of the work that an analyst may have done or is doing in terms of trying to mine data or mine insights in terms of top performing campaigns and helping you kind of figure that out and giving you more guidance. So again, it's that kind of co-pilot, for lack of a better term. We've also got into agentic conversational as well. This is also new, something that we're doing new, which is kind of cool because this is going beyond the engagement of a click in an email or a mobile message, for example, or a push notification. So we launched Marigold Concierge a couple months ago. We have some clients that are beta testing it. In the fin vertical, a lot around customer service and financial advice. So for example, if you are clicking from a campaign like an email, for example, you can go to a agentic conversation that knows your information. And what's cool is we're starting to get different metrics than you typically would from an email campaign, for example. And we're getting a lot of engagement, which is cool. So customer service, again, is a big one, right? There's a lot of cost savings and time savings from both sides of the house, from the marketer and the business side, as well as the consumer side. So we're able to support that. And lots of good engagement, good kind of initial data to support that this is valuable within the customer experience. So this is something new that we've launched. All of that to say that this is not perfect. There's a lot of challenges as well. Everything in our ecosystem is controlled and with our partners in the fin world specifically. But as everyone probably knows, there's bias and concerns potentially when you're not overseeing it the right way. So we have everything in a very compliant way. Everything is pretty clean, but nothing's perfect. It's only as good as the data that's in there. And that kind of segues into the humanity piece of this whole thing. And so, wanted to share some use cases here at the end, around like how clients are using some of these things. I know I gave some examples before. So you have, one client is doing a lot around content. AI is now, we're integrating the compliance functions into the risk assessment part of the process. Is anyone working on that currently? You guys doing any of that stuff? If you want to go deeper, by the way, I'm happy to talk about this stuff and nerd out after this, because we could talk about it for a while. But then there's kind of the classic, if you look at the bottom one there, like, email subject lines, content development, that kind of stuff. So all of that stuff, like in our platform, for example, you can upload a brand guidelines thing and everything could be on brand in terms of the recommendations for next best content, including like repositories of existing content that you can pull from, which is a big thing for our financial services clients, is like wanting to cut down the time that you are working with, let's say, a creative function or a code function, so you can basically look at a large repository of a pre-approved content, pull from that as a marketer, and then be able to scale those campaigns. Obviously, localization and language is a big one as well. So it's cool to see some of these use cases come to life. I also thought it'd be nice just to kind of overlay what we see as consumers. Some of the things I was just talking to my wife about it, because she's not in this world, and she was like, I was showing her the slide because I'm like, do you realize that this is actually happening to you every day? Everything from the product recommendations, which we all know. I love the Spotify, the algorithmic content recommendations. Just kind of cool things that we don't necessarily see. But from a marketing and financial services, now we're finally starting to do some of these cool things that these brands that are in less regulated industries have been doing for quite a while. I like what SoFi's doing in terms of like, trying to move beyond transactional relationships, and they're using a lot of ML and data to create more personalization beyond just the SoFi Plus or the Amazon Prime of finance. So beyond the numbers that you see there, there's a whole layer of personalization based on the type of customer you are, which I think is super cool. And this, I think, will be disruptive to the kind of traditional tiered banking model where you deposit X, get percentage off, right? For a loan, for example. Another one too I just wanted to highlight is around Klarna. So this again is more on the operational side, but they did a whole story. They did a whole kind of press thing 6 or 8 months ago about all the money that they've saved from just integrating a few Gen AI tools to cut down on image development. We're able to create fresher images more frequently. They use Midjourney and a couple other tools. And then there's all the customer service stuff, like I mentioned before. So a lot of money being saved there. I think it's a good use case. So yeah, I wanted to share that one. Just wrapping up here. So yeah, so in terms of the semi-autonomous messaging future, our recommendations always come up with one key use case. We have like a library of FinServe use cases, so I'm happy to share things if you guys are interested after that we've worked on with clients. Obviously, bringing compliance. I think the key is from a tech partner perspective. I think it's good to have both. Obviously, from a banking perspective, you're going to have internal stakeholders, but I actually think it's good to get an outside point of view. I'm biased, of course, but I do think working with a vendor that works a lot in this vertical with FinServe brands is a good way to kind of gut check it, test it, and get something out there live. Just it doesn't matter what it is, just try a use case. We have a couple people, we have a little booth out there. If you want to talk to us, we work with lots of brands, a lot of FinServe brands and other verticals as well. So how am I doing on time here? I know we were a little tight.
Yeah, but you were behind, so you are 6 minutes.
Does anyone have questions? Otherwise, I'm good to go.
Well, we should be receiving guests from the other rooms because we're all coming together again. So
okay,
you're free to filibuster or field remarkable
You guys,
questions.
anyone want to talk about anything about the semi-autonomous lifestyle? Anyone doing cool stuff in autonomous? Anyone using cool technology, tools? Nothing? All right. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.